Hi, my name is Alora Espy, and I'm a senior at Moreno Valley High School. Recently, I led a radio show and webinar about education reform with True Kids One, a youth media education organization. We worked with students from local Taos high schools and brought in guests from South Carolina and Texas. Our main point of reference was an article written by the National Conference of State Legislatures called No Time to Lose. Our goal in the radio show was to integrate the youth voice into the discussion about education reform. We believe that students have opinions and experiences that can provide vital insight into U.S. schools and change the future of American education.
If we're trying to make a comprehensive plan, what should be our plan for New Mexico?
Hey, Zach.
Yep.
I think specifically with New Mexico, I think it goes deeper than the classroom, so to speak. I think that really the biggest issue for education reform in New Mexico gets back to poverty. I speak oftentimes on topics around the country about how do we change the stigma around mental health. And of course, mental health, poverty, all of these issues are tied together. Drug abuse, everything, they're all interconnected. And specifically when we look at New Mexico, I think we're ranked like 49th in the country in education, 50th, the 50th poorest or the poorest state in the country. All of these issues are connected. So when you have 1 in 3 students in New Mexico who's going to bed hungry, how is this person worried about getting an A on that AP, Chem test? Like when I was going to school in New Mexico, I had friends who weren't eating, who I would give my lunch to so that they could eat, so that they could try to focus. And even still, I know kids like that. So really, I think what it calls for is it calls for teachers to be, and it gets a little bit back to the point that you were making earlier, that we need teachers who are less teachers and more mentors. They've kind of evolved in their role so that they're taking on more of a hands-on role outside of the classroom in these kids' lives.
And I think that justice really leads to the idea of, is education reform just about education? Are there other topics and are there other aspects that need to be addressed before we can really start to fix the education system?
Well, and I'll get into this, but I think that really works into one of the tips. And so one of the tips that they gave is focus on individual successes first. And so once we have a plan, the next important thing is to focus on one thing, because you can't take the entire plan at once. But I think, like you're talking about, focusing on poverty or something like that with the plan would be a very excellent idea.
And as we're wrapping up this show, I am really grateful that I was able to be a part of this, because I think what the true goal of this discussion was to really integrate the youth voice into the idea of education reform and to say we're here and we have opinions that matter, and we're very close to education. We're some of the closest, if not the closest people to the education system. So I think that rather than sitting here and trying to figure out what exactly is going to fix the education system in America, we had this really great opportunity to come in and start the ball rolling and get the discussion going. And I think that's exactly what we did.
And I think that more so than that, if we continue this to have this ball rolling, then it can really set statewide changes. And so I agree that we need to start changes in our local level. And I agree that the most beneficial at this point are going to be local changes. But what I will say is that the very first tip, and the tip that this probably thing focuses the most on, is building a team and setting priorities. And building an inclusive team. It talks about bringing in principals, students, teachers, parents, along with legislatures and high government officials, to create a team that will reflect what the state's image. So truthfully, a few of us in this radio plays, we cannot come up with a statewide vision, but together we can. And if we bring in these people in a true, and I believe it's already happening actually, but a true New Mexico panel that's reflective of all of us, that's how we're really going to get the ball rolling. And that's how we're going to reflect our local interests to affect statewide and eventually nationwide change. So with that, I'm really thankful that we're starting the ball rolling here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone who came and listened to the show or participated in our webinar. We hope that these will happen again in the future, but if you're interested, KNCE will be rebroadcasting on January 15th, and we will be continuing the discussion on the True Kids 1 Facebook page. We're grateful to True Kids 1 for hosting this, and we are so grateful to you for listening. Thanks again.